Section 19 of The Treasure Chest of My Book House. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Treasure Chest of My Book House. Edited by Olive Beaupre Miller. The Sugar Camp by Charles Dudley Warner. I think there is no part of farming the boy enjoys more than the making of maple sugar. It is better than blackberrying, and nearly as good as fishing. And one reason he likes this work is that somebody else does the most of it. It is a sort of work in which he can appear to be very active, and yet not do much. In my day maple sugar making used to be something between picnicking and being shipwrecked on a fertile island, where one should save from the wreck tubs and augers and great kettles and pork and hens' eggs and rye and Indian bread, and begin at once to lead the sweetest life in the world. As I remember the New England boy, and I am very intimate with one, he used to be on the qui vive in the spring for the sap to begin running. I think he discovered it as soon as anybody. Perhaps he knew it by a feeling of something starting in his own veins, a sort of spring stir in his legs and arms, which tempted him to stand on his head or throw a handspring, if he could find a spot of ground from which the snow had melted. The sap stirs early in the legs of a country boy, and shows itself in uneasiness in the toes, which get tired of boots and want to come out and touch the soil just as soon as the sun has warmed it a little. The country boy goes barefoot just as naturally as the trees burst their buds, which were packed and varnished over in the fall to keep the water and the frost out. Perhaps the boy has been out digging into the maple trees with his jackknife. At any rate, he is pretty sure to announce the discovery as he comes running into the house in a great state of excitement, as if he had heard a hen cackle in the barn, with "Sap's running!" And then indeed the stir and excitement begin. The sap buckets, which have been stored in the garret over the wood house, and which the boy has occasionally climbed up to look at with another boy, for they are full of sweet suggestions of the annual spring frolic, the sap buckets are brought down and set out on the south side of the house and scalded. The snow is still a foot or 2 feet deep in the woods, and the ox sled is got out to make a road to the sugar camp, and the campaign begins. The boy is everywhere present, superintending everything, asking questions, and filled with a desire to help the excitement. It is a great day when the cart is loaded with the buckets and the procession starts into the woods. The sun shines almost unobstructedly into the forest, for there are only naked branches to bar it. The snow is soft and beginning to sink down, leaving the young bushes spindling up everywhere. The snowbirds are twittering about, and the noise of shouting and of the blows of the axe echoes far and wide. This is spring, and the boy can scarcely contain his delight that his outdoor life is about to begin again. In the first place the men go about and tap the trees, drive in the spouts, and hang the buckets under. The boy watches all these operations with the greatest interest. He wishes that some time when a hole is bored in a tree the sap would spout out in a stream, as it does when a cider barrel is tapped. But it never does, it only drops, sometimes almost in a stream, but on the whole slowly, and the boy learns that the sweet things of the world have to be patiently waited for, and do not usually come otherwise than drop by drop. Then the camp is to be cleared of snow. The shanty is re-covered with boughs. In front of it 2 enormous logs are rolled nearly together, and a fire is built between them. Forked sticks are set at each end, and a long pole is laid on them, and on this are hung the great cauldron kettles. The huge hogsheads are turned right side up, and cleaned out to receive the sap that is gathered. And now, if there is a good sap run, the establishment is under full headway. The great fire that is kindled up is never let out, night or day, as long as the season lasts. Somebody is always cutting wood to feed it; somebody is busy most of the time gathering in the sap; somebody is required to watch the kettles that they do not boil over, and to fill them. It is not the boy, however; he is too busy with things in general to be of any use in details. He has his own little sap yoke and small pails, with which he gathers the sweet liquid. He has a little boiling place of his own, with small logs and a tiny kettle. In the great kettles the boiling goes on slowly, and the liquid, as it thickens, is dipped from one to another, until in the end kettle it is reduced to syrup, and is taken out to cool and settle until enough is made to "sugar off." To "sugar off" is to boil the syrup until it is thick enough to crystallize into sugar. This is the grand event, and is only done once in 2 or 3 days. But the boy's desire is to sugar off perpetually. He boils his kettle down as rapidly as possible. He is not particular about chips, scum, or ashes; he is apt to burn his sugar; but if he can get enough to make a little wax on the snow, or to scrape from the bottom of the kettle with his wooden paddle, he is happy. A good deal is wasted on his hands, and the outside of his face, and on his clothes, but he does not care. He is not stingy. To watch the operations of the big fire gives him constant pleasure. Sometimes he is left to watch the boiling kettles, with a piece of pork tied on the end of a stick, which he dips into the boiling mass when it threatens to go over. He is constantly tasting of it, however, to see if it is not almost syrup. He has a long round stick, whittled smooth at one end, which he uses for this purpose, at the constant risk of burning his tongue. The smoke blows in his face. He is grimy with ashes. He is altogether such a mass of dirt, stickiness, and sweetness, that his own mother wouldn't know him. He likes to boil eggs with the hired man in the hot sap. He likes to roast potatoes in the ashes, and he would live in the camp day and night if he were permitted. Some of the hired men sleep in the bough shanty, and keep the fire blazing all night. To sleep there with them, and awake in the night and hear the wind in the trees, and see the sparks fly up to the sky, is a perfect realization of all the stories of adventures he has ever read. He tells the other boys afterwards that he heard something in the night that sounded very much like a bear. The hired man says that he was very much scared by the hooting of an owl. The great occasions for the boy, though, are the times of sugaring off. Sometimes this used to be done in the evening, and it was made the excuse for a frolic in the camp. The neighbours were invited; sometimes even the pretty girls from the village, who filled all the woods with their sweet voices and merry laughter and little affectations of fright. The white snow still lies on all the ground except the warm spot about the camp. The tree branches all show distinctly in the light of the fire, which sends its ruddy glare far into the darkness, and lights up the bough shanty, the hogsheads, the buckets on the trees, and the group about the boiling kettles, until the scene is like something taken out of a fairy play. If Rembrandt could have seen a sugar party in a New England wood he would have made out of its strong contrasts of light and shade one of the finest pictures in the world. At these sugar parties every one was expected to eat as much sugar as possible; and those who are practised in it can eat a great deal. It is a peculiarity about eating warm maple sugar, that though you may eat so much of it one day as to loathe the thought of it, you will want it the next day more than ever. At the sugaring off they used to pour the hot sugar upon the snow, where it congealed, without crystallizing, into a sort of wax, which I do suppose is the most delicious substance that was ever invented. And it takes a great while to eat it. If one should close his teeth firmly on a ball of it, he would be unable to open his mouth until it dissolved. The sensation while it is melting is very pleasant, but one cannot converse. The boy used to make a big lump of it and give it to the dog, who seized it with great avidity, and closed his jaws upon it, as dogs will on anything. It was funny, the next moment, to see the expression of perfect surprise on the dog's face, when he found that he could not open his jaws. He shook his head, he sat down in despair, he ran round in a circle, he dashed into the woods and back again. He did everything except climb a tree and howl. It would have been such a relief to him if he could have howled. But that was the one thing he could not do. Section 19